All right. Hello, everyone. This is a brand new thing that is going to be a supplementary thing to 20th Century Boy, my normal podcast. This is called Mike Talks, where whenever I can be bothered / can organize it, I'm going to talk to people that I think are cool or have some relevance to what I talk about on the podcast. And the person that I'm on a Zoom call with today is someone I've known for a while. Online. We've never met in person. In fact, this is the first time I'm actually speaking to you voice to voice, but we message a lot on Insta and whatnot. It's Dave Lee from Dave Lee Down Under. How are you going? Thanks so much for being here.
I'm going great, Mike. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to it. How are you been? Going well?
I've been really well. And yeah, we have been trying to tee this up for a while to actually chat on record. For those of you who don't know, Dave is primarily a YouTuber. You've just launched a podcast, which we will plug. And you do pop culture analysis and news and reviews and all those kinds of things. Do you want to give us a bit more info on like specifically what you do and what you talk about?
Sure. Well, I think you pretty much covered all the bases. I've just, I have a deep love and passion for film and pop culture, and animation is where I think I've really found my niche in the last, few years. And my channel is really just based around editorial videos, video essays and stuff. That's kind of like the bread and butter of the channel. Particularly one series that I do called Cartoon Evolution, where I spotlight a particular classic cartoon character and chart their history over the last like 70 years or whatever in a 20 to 40 minute video. So that kind of makes up what I get most of my views out of. But then I supplement that with all other kind of content, film reviews, latest film reviews, news stuff, and reviews of art. I'm a big champion. I love to champion physical media. So I'm always doing physical media reviews and stuff. I always think there's, something so important about keeping that physical media alive. So I kind of touch all the bases of just the things that I really love, and I want to share my passion with people out there.
So many points that I want to pick up on that, but I don't know exactly where to start. But like you've overwhelmed the audience, so I hope you're happy.
Yes.
But I'm gonna have to. I actually, a good one to start with. Mm-hmm. You've got a massive collection of Blu-rays. You're in like you're also your room that you're in right now for people who might be watching the video. Is that like a home? You do a lot of videos in this room, I think. Is that a home cinema that you've set up?
The home theater, yeah. We set up this theater like 6 years ago or something like that. I've got the big screens in front of me, 3-meter screen. We got the projector. You can see it up there. Wow. We got the lights and everything going on. Yeah,
cinema so we wanted style couches, like the comfy sofa couches.
Got the like the recliner things and everything, and just kind of decked it out to kind of tried to design it to look like an old Art Deco, theater from like the 1920s, 30s, 40s. Classic. I'm a huge classic Hollywood fan. As you can see, I've got the classic movie posters behind me, and just a place to enjoy movies, and just that's what we love. Just love consuming content and films and stuff.
Yeah, amazing. And I think it was you appeared on the Daily Talk Show, which is a podcast that I've been on as well. Great podcast that gets a lot of good guests on, including yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think this could be an overestimation, but I think you said in your lifetime you've maybe spent $250,000 on physical media.
We tried to figure it out. Well, myself and my dad, we have a joint collection. Yeah. So we both sort of just, to make sure we don't like double up on the stuff, we buy like so many of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. We tried to figure it out. It was some crazy number, but I can tell you, let me have a look. We log everything on an app to just kind of keep track of what we have bought, because occasionally my dad will buy a movie that, we've already got in the collection. So it's more so to just keep track of everything. And we have got, if I can, I've just updated this app, so I'm trying to figure it out. It's like,
I'll go 5921, 5921.
Not quite, but close. It's a bit over 5,500 movies and TV series in the collection. So it's been a lot of money over the years.
Like, because I in the past have been a really big collector of physical media. I've got a lot of the Simpsons DVDs. I've got a lot of the
Yeah.
Futurama DVDs. I've got a lot of I used to really like that, but then I just decided it's so much effort to put a disc into a player and start
Yeah.
playing it that like I'd rather like just have it streamed somewhere.
Yeah.
Is it more about the collection, or do you like, because you're not watching
Yeah.
5,000 movies
No.
every year, right? Like
No. Yeah,
there are
exactly.
some movies in that collection that you may never watch again with the
Oh,
disc.
yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
We have hundreds of movies that have not been watched.
Yeah.
And what I've been doing this year is I get up very early in the morning, like 6 a.m., and I'll put a movie on before I work because I realized they've got so many in the collection that I've never watched, and that's literally the only way I'm going to be able to get through them. I've watched something like 450 movies this year or something crazy like that already.
And what was today's movie?
I didn't get one in today. I've been busy today. I did
Okay.
some interviews. I had to get up at 5 a.m. I did
Wow.
some interviews this morning. Then I recorded an episode of the podcast, and now I'm talking with you. So I skipped one today, but I'll probably watch one
Wow.
tonight. But yeah, for me, it's streaming is so to rely on a streaming service to have a particular movie that you want to watch is too testy. I mean, maybe now that the studios, like you've got Disney, have got Disney Plus, and it's almost their entire back catalog of stuff. Maybe now it's kind of moving towards that territory where almost everything's going to be available at one touch. But for me, it's almost like I just want to have these movies to watch whenever I want to watch it.
Yeah.
So for one example was a couple of years ago when one of the big Avengers films was coming out, I wanted to rewatch like all the Marvel films. And I was actually overseas in the UK at the time. I was living there for a couple of years, and none of the streaming services had the Marvel films. But so if I was at home, I would have had them on DVD. I would have been able to watch them, right, or Blu-ray, right? I would have been able to watch them. But because I was overseas and they weren't on any streaming services, I couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just about having a back catalog of all these movies that I love, movies that I want to watch. There's a lot of crap movies in the collection, but I never get rid of stuff. But it's just about, just having that collection of stuff, and it's on hand. And a lot of stuff I refer to for videos. So if I'm doing a video about something and I want to refer to something, some really obscure old movie, I've got it in the collection. I can just go straight to it. I don't have to worry with finding it on streaming but that said, if it's easier to stream and I do have it in the collection, I'll still stream it. This week or this month, I did a ranking. I do a lot of ranking videos. So I just launched one where I ranked the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror specials, the first 10. I just streamed them on Disney Plus because it was easier than pulling out all the DVDs, right? So,
and it's interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. It's just having the stuff. I think
it is interesting because like in a different way, the availability thing we're kind of seeing now, and not to get into any like political things, but like I've got all the Chris Lilly DVDs from back in the day, right? And now he's been dropped from all the streaming services. So I'm like, like if I ever wanted to watch Summer Heights High, like I've got that DVD.
Well, yeah, exactly right.
And again, not to get into any of the politics of it, but now like when who knows what streaming services are just going to take down because they want to censor their content and stuff like that. There is an advantage to physical media, which I think you've totally spelled out there. On to like your obsession with cartoons. And for me, for whatever reason, I think mainly of the Looney Tunes when I think of your channel. You've done a lot of really, really interesting videos on, as you said, cartoon evolution. You've done Bugs. You've done, I remember the Marvin the Martian one was really cool. And but you don't only do Looney Tunes, but can you talk about something like the Looney Tunes, which are obviously just such a time-honored classic cartoon that don't necessarily have very much relevance in the pop culture sphere today. What is it about them that you find so intriguing that you want to do 40-minute videos analyzing all their appearances? Because I think it's great.
Yeah. Well, my big passion is the classic Disney shorts. And a lot of my study in the history of animation has been study on Disney Studio. So essentially 5, 6, maybe 10 years worth of studying into the Disney studio is what has formed the backbone of my knowledge of cartoons and classic characters and stuff.
Mm.
And what I found is a lot of the more obscure characters are the ones that people are interested in, because it's why is I think it's just that. It's just people are curious to learn about maybe someone like Felix the cat, who was a 100-year-old character, but you don't see much of him. And over the years, there's been less and less and less media based around them, and then they just kind of drop off the face of the planet. But people know about them. People
Yeah,
know Felix the cat. People know Betty Boop. You know,
even
and
Mickey Mouse is kind of in that territory
well,
now,
yeah,
where Mickey Mouse isn't. There are no Mickey Mouse movies or like
mm,
he's not a mainstay in popular culture, but I reckon every single person knows him as like
mm.
the ambassador of Disney, I suppose.
Well, exactly. Well, that goes back to the 1940s, and Mickey Mouse was the big staple of the Disney company. But it got to a point where there was so much Mickey merchandise, there was so many Mickey shorts, he became the studio's baby, and it got to a point where they were like, we don't know what to do with him without tarnishing that reputation. So then you get characters like Donald Duck and Goofy, who are, less, Mickey Mouse is a very innocent character. And then you've got characters like Donald Duck and Goofy, who are crazier, zanier. Donald Duck's got a real bad temper, right? So they come into prominence in the 1940s, and Mickey Mouse gets pushed into the background. But we still know about him because he's been used and he's still that figurehead. But over time, the company's been so scared to touch the character because they're scared of, he stands for the company now. So a lot of these characters got watered down for those reasons. People were too scared to do things with them, or simply they just became outdated. People moved on to other characters. And I think that's the most fascinating part about it, is why did these characters become so obsolete, but why do we still know about them, and exploring that. And a lot of the history of these characters is so imbued in social, whatever's going on socially, politically at the time of their inception, at the height of their career, and what ultimately led to their downfall is a lot of, like what we're talking about, sort of real political things, cancel culture, stuff like that really affected cartoons even back in 40s, 50s and stuff. So I just think it's just so fascinating just to explore that sort of, there's a lot more to it than you'd think, as you'd know, as you've seen the videos.
Yeah, and that's the most fascinating thing about it, I think, is like just learning about not just the literal evolution in terms of like, Bugs Bunny used to be like a little bit fatter and or whatever it might be, but like the history behind these characters and the reasoning, like companies wanted the characters to look a specific way or to be a specific way, and how that was like, marketing angles and all these different things that followed them through on the notion of like Bugs Bunny. I know like the Looney Tunes had a massive hit with Space Jam in the late 90s, and then they tried to sort of do a more action-based reboot film with Back in Action, which was a flop both commercially and critically, although I still think it's a really good movie.
That's a great film.
What are your thoughts on, like, I guess going back to it, what are your thoughts on, regardless of whether Disney wants to touch Mickey Mouse or whether Warner Brothers wants to touch the Looney Tunes, which, they're making Space Jam too, but like, do you think that these characters have a place in modern pop culture in the forefront, or do you think they'll always be seen as like legacy characters?
I think it is a tricky thing, because the more especially now where everyone has a soapbox on social media and everyone has such a loud voice, there's going to be people who agree, yes, I want more of this, but then there's also going to be people who, no, don't touch that, you're ruining my childhood or whatever. So these are all characters that are very hard to do anything with, and that's why, again, you just don't see much of them. And where you might see Space Jam is huge, and then you don't see anything from the Looney Tunes for another 20 years. I think there's always a place for these characters, but you have to do the right thing with the character. And I think sometimes it does come to adapting them for the times. That can go really well, it can go really bad. So it's like that fine line. There's a real fine line. I think a lot of the characters do still deserve to be out there. People do still need to know about them. And that's like a big part of what I do with the series is, get these, they're some obscure characters that I believe people need to know about. And people have discovered them through my videos. I think it's amazing. And that's part of what I want to do. I think all these characters will have a place, but it's about finding the right place, the right time, and doing it properly.
Mm. Yeah, okay. On the note of like, and one of the reasons, obviously, and I'm sure like people who listen to my podcast and know a bit about me, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you so much is because you seem like we seem pretty similar, like not necessarily in like, I don't have a huge history with something like Looney Tunes or anything like that, but
Yeah.
we both seem to be people who pick into pop culture a
Yeah.
lot more thoroughly than normal people. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Definitely.
for me, it's probably more so stuff like video games and like anime and those kinds of things that I'm obsessing over and stuff. And I actually asked you to do a cartoon evolution on Goku
That's
because I
right.
thought I reckon so many people would want that.
Oh,
But
for sure.
but I guess like where do you think where do you think this obsession with animation and stuff comes from? Because a lot of people, and I want to touch on this a bit later, but a lot of people I feel like, particularly men, get to a certain age
Mhm.
where suddenly like you're not allowed to like anything cartoony
Yeah.
or colorful anymore. Whereas I'm like upset, like I go see all the new Pixar movies. I
Yeah.
go buy all the new like Nintendo games, which I love. And most of it is considered really, really high art. Like critically, a lot
Mm.
of these things are
Yeah.
considered to be incredible, yet it seems like a lot of people just disregard it as like children's
Mhm.
content that is below or beneath them. Like, do you have any thoughts on that, where it came from, what your thoughts are on that issue, I suppose?
I think I think animation was always a lot of the classic animated shorts were done for adults, for just for audiences, right? Whether it be adults, whether it be kids. Walt Disney famously said many times, I don't make films for children, I make films for audiences. But over the time, obviously, a lot of the Disney stuff is more family heavy. It is aimed towards younger audiences, especially over time. You see with Mickey Mouse, he gets so watered down, more watered down, more watered down. It becomes a figure for children. You know,
Mm,
particularly with some of the more recent kind of things they've put the characters in. And I don't know. I think just the notion of animation or cartoons being for children just really comes from over the years. Cartoons got aimed more and more towards children with television cartoons when like the 1960s. Most of the animation output was for children. It was for talent like cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons. You got stuff like Rocky and Bullwinkle or the Hanna-Barbera stuff, Scooby-Doo. A lot of the cartoons got watered down. They were very violent. The early Hanna-Barbera stuff, very violent. And it was
mm,
during, Vietnam War. A lot of family groups came out and were like, these, you need to water your children. You need to make these children content less violent, right? Some of it got watered down. Scooby-Doo was the result of Hanna-Barbera wanting to make a series that was more accessible for younger kids. It wasn't violent. It wasn't, too over the top with anything. And I feel like that's where the notion maybe comes from. And I think it's silly because it's just it's another art form. It's another way to tell stories. So what if it's been drawn by hand? So what if it's been created on a computer? So what if it's so shiny and beautiful and appealing to children? But the stories a lot of these movies are telling are just aimed at audiences, and they're beautiful, heartwarming stories for everyone. So I think the notion that cartoons animation is just for kids is really silly, especially now with the amount of content that we're getting. But look, I went through a period when I was maybe mid-teens and stuff. I didn't watch as much cartoons or animation and stuff. I've always watched The Simpsons, stuff like that, Futurama, I loved. But a lot of the Disney stuff I kind of fell off with, kind of in my maybe early teens and stuff. I don't know, maybe it's just a kind of one of those natural things. But when I was like 18, 19, I started looking at these films for the artistic merits. And that's kind of really where my passion began for the animated art form. It's to realize the stories behind the art and the stories behind the creation of the films and the characters and everything. And just looking at it as just an incredible form of art, really.
mm,
And to say, oh, I'm too old for that, or, well, I'm not a kid anymore, it's for kids. And it's just such a detriment to the incredible art that goes into these films by adults. These films are
Mm.
made by adults, who have these crazy ideas and just wonderful ideas and a wonderful, talent. I think it's just so silly to brush it off like that.
Totally. And like, like so many of these films. I watched a video on YouTube the other night that was talking about how much research went into animating the film Finding Nemo, right?
Mm.
Like in terms of how they made all of the sea life look real and all of the underwater stuff look real. And they compared it to the film Shark Tale, which was DreamWorks output sort of the same year as Finding Nemo, right? So they also made a water film. And in that film, was pretty trash. And a lot of the characters are anthropomorphized a bit, whereas in Finding Nemo, they are what they are, right? They're not trying to make them look like humans, whereas the main fish in Shark Tale looks like Will Smith, who's the voice actor, right? And I think people kind of see something and think it's a cartoon, therefore it's bad, and they don't even realize like sort of what you do, like all this history behind it, all the thought behind it, and all the research made to make it look and feel how it does. And like even something like, I get this a lot with my hobbies because I love, for example, my favorite thing in the world is a game called Super Smash Bros, which you're probably vaguely familiar with. Yeah, you're a 90s kid. And I think because that game is so colorful and the main character is Mario and there's Pikachu and all that, I think people look at it and just think, oh, this is like a silly kids game that kids play. But like it's one of the most competitively played games in the world, and it has an enormous following, and it has an exceptionally high level of gameplay. You can be as good or as basic as you want when you play that game. And I think it's like people see things and just automatically judge it without even thinking about what it could possibly be behind that. And that's always annoyed me a little bit. And when I stumbled across your channel, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, and I think that's the beauty of YouTube. Like, it's so niche in because your videos just started coming to me, I guess, because of what everything else I was watching. And I absolutely loved all your stuff. And I just thought it was awesome that someone from Australia was doing it. So you've been really inspiring to me.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's
what I want. That's what I want to do. I just want to reach out to people and share my passion and stuff with people. There's not a whole lot of people covering the kind of things I do, especially in the depth that I mean, there are other series out there exploring characters and stuff. But as far as I'm aware, I haven't seen anyone else, devote like a 40-minute video to Marvin the Martian or something. But I don't like, I just want to share the love, and I don't care, how old the person is that's watching the video, or I don't aim it towards a younger audience. If anything, I'm aiming more towards an older audience. I touch on themes, talk about the war a lot, how the war impacted cartoon studios and what characters spawned from the war, racial things, sexuality. Like Betty Boop was formed from such a sexual time. This Flapper character from the 1920s that spawned out of the sexual revolution. So really, I am aiming these videos towards an older audience, and that's what I want to connect with. That it's cool to like these things because of the history behind them. I mean, Betty Boop might just look like just a character for kids or something. Not that she's that relevant now, but the history that's behind it is pretty crazy. So I think that's definitely a big part of where I'm coming from with the videos.
I did watch the Betty Boop one as well, and that was really good. So everyone go and check it out. In terms of like modern animation, so let's say I'm talking about like the last 10 years, the last decade in animation in cinema and television. I'd love to know your thoughts because we've seen Pixar was a real spearhead in animation for a while. Like they had such a great run during the 2000s of some really highly acclaimed films. But in the more recent years, they haven't been as consistent. And I think that's a general consensus. Whereas Disney, which obviously is the owner of Pixar or whatever, they're having a lot of critical success with films like Frozen, obviously a commercial success as well. Moana, like they seem to be almost the new Pixar in their films now.
Yeah.
Do you have you felt that at all in your analysis of them? Because I've seen every Disney and Pixar film
Yeah.
to date, so you can drop names, you can talk about specific movies. I'd just love to know your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that goes back to John Lasseter taking over Disney, who, of
Right.
course, came from Pixar. You know, was one of the guys who spearheaded Pixar, and got to a point at Disney where the reason Disney bought Pixar was because Pixar was so successful, and Disney at that point, you know, coming out of the late 1990s, you've left the Renaissance period. Movies like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Little Mermaid, Hercules, Tarzan, huge movies. And then
Mm.
suddenly they're releasing movies like Dinosaur, Meet the Robinson,
Don't you
Chicken
dare
Little.
don't you dare say The Emperor's New Groove.
I love The Emperor's New Groove.
Because I just sorry to interrupt you, but Dave did a video a few months ago now, which was ranking all the what's that period of Disney called? Is that the post Renaissance?
The post-Renaissance, yeah.
Yeah, the post-Renaissance era, which includes The Emperor's New Groove. And I'm not going to spoil number one, but it wasn't The Emperor's New Groove, and I got it very angry at him for it. I can't even remember what you put as number one, but it wasn't The Emperor's New Groove, which
Lilo and Stitch, I think.
Okay, that's a pretty good one as well. But yeah, he didn't put The Emperor's New Groove, my favorite film, as number one. Sorry to interrupt. So you were
Right.
we're in the post-Renaissance that
Yeah.
was a bit of a flop for Disney commercially.
Yeah, and very much critically, again, movies like Chicken Little, like terrible. And Disney goes, we are not having any kind of success. Pixar is at the height of their game, you know, releasing movies like Toy Story 3 and just all these like huge films like that. Toy Story 3 is a bit later. But anyway,
Wall-E.
great. Kind of that period. Huge success. Disney goes, we're going to buy him out. We're going to buy him and we're going to take the guy from Pixar and we're going to shove him in Disney animation and he's going to turn it around. And he did. More recently, John Lasseter's been let go from Disney because he's been another one that got in some behind the scenes trouble and stuff. And, you know, won't get into the political stuff and whatever. But I think he really turned around Disney animation. I mean, as soon as he comes in, you've got movies like Princess and the Frog, Tangled,
Great
Moana,
movie.
Frozen, brilliant films.
Moana is such an amazing film with
incredible.
Such a good soundtrack. To be honest, I think Frozen is exceptionally overrated. It's certainly not a bad film, but Moana just like blew my mind.
Incredible.
Totally. The one there was one recently, and wait, before I say that, I wanted to make one reference. Do you remember the Simpsons episode where Homer starts CompuHyperGlobal Meganet and Bill Gates comes to his house and he's just like, hey, we're worried you might overtake us, so we've decided to buy you out. And Homer's like, oh my God, we're going to be rich. And then Bill Gates just goes, buy them out, boys. And they just trash the entire place.
Yeah.
I immediately thought of that when you said buy them out.
Pretty much, yeah.
What was it? Oh yeah, Zootopia. I did not think was very good. I did not like that.
I wasn't huge on that either. No, you're always going to have duds. I wasn't huge on Zootopia. Wasn't huge on Frozen either. But again, they obviously touched some sort of spark. I personally think Tangled is far better than Frozen. Tangled is like one of my favorite, gorgeous film. But yeah, so I mean, John Lasseter tried to bring that traditional animation back to the company too, Princess and the Frog, Winnie the Pooh, but audiences weren't receptive to it. So then they obviously went to the completely 3D output that they do now, but definitely turned the company around for sure. He's not there now. Jennifer Lee's running the company now, who was the director of Frozen, the first one and the second one. So she's doing it now. So it'll be interesting to see where we go in the future. Frozen 2 I thought was all right. I enjoyed it a bit more than the first one.
I hated Frozen 2, so that just shows that different people can have different opinions.
Exactly right.
What would you reckon would be in all of Disney's catalog? Because I love Disney films, the whole catalog going back to wherever it goes. What would you, and I hope you don't have a video planned of this, but what's your favorite? Like, what would just be your favorite Disney film of all time?
It's tough. I'm like in so many different minds on this. And I have done videos about it.
Yeah.
But I kind of like, I grew up with stuff like The Lion King would have been like my all-time favorite Disney film growing up. The first film I ever saw in a cinema, I was like 3 or 4 years old. But I have such a huge appreciation for Snow White, very first film they ever made. But one that really, really inspired me in so many different ways, especially when I really first got heavily passionate, interested in animation, is Fantasia, which was Walt Disney's highly experimental, hugely pretentious film where they just literally went all out with experimenting with animation.
Yeah.
And it's literally like nearly 2 hours worth of just animation to classical music, right?
And it is also parodied in The Simpsons with Scratch Tasha and Itchy and Scratchy Land.
Yes, it is. I just love, I love it. I love that film because it's just so highly experimental, and the art and the love that went into the film is amazing. But I think they're like the top three for me. And Beauty and the Beast, I love too, because it's just such a beautiful, beautiful story. So
do you think in the past maybe 5 or 6 years, we've started seeing lots of live action remakes of the classic Renaissance Disney films, and we had Beauty and the Beast with Emma Watson, we had The Lion King probably last year, we had Mulan this year, we had Aladdin last year. What are your thoughts on that in terms of Disney's originality? Because these are guaranteed. These movies don't even have to be good. They're guaranteed cash cows, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't hate the live action Lion King, but I don't think I'd ever watch it again. But I didn't hate it. I didn't hate Aladdin either. But what are your thoughts on that from a creative standpoint? Because it does seem like we're heading towards, let's just remake all of our old movies as live action now. Yeah.
I think on one, like everyone likes to throw around the words lazy and cash grab, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, obviously they're made to make a lot of money. Disney's a business and they're going to go where the money is. So you can't really blame them for that. Yeah. Creatively, I would love to see more original stuff from Disney. But the thing is, the audience doesn't go that way anymore, which is the sad thing. But I think with Disney Plus, it does open up a new avenue for them to create films that are more experimental, that are a bit different, offer us all this new content that they might not have put out into cinemas over the last 5 years because it wouldn't have made any money. The live action remakes, I've liked most of them to varying degrees. Some of them I really love. Some of them I didn't like at all. But I feel like these are stories that have been told over and over and over and over again over time. You go back to the classic Disney cartoons, most of them were films already, had been told on film prior to even Walt Disney making, Walt Disney was inspired to make Snow White because he saw a silent film version of Snow White. Before Disney made Aladdin, there were like 30 different versions of Aladdin.
Yeah.
Like films already, right? And between the two versions, it was like 10 different versions of Aladdin. So in one mind, you kind of go, one different version, one new version, another version isn't really going to make a big difference. It's the modern version of taking a story and telling it in a different way. You go back thousands of years, people telling stories over a campfire, right? And then people writing the same stories down in a book. And then people turn those books into comics, and then people, turn the books into movies, cartoons, and then they turn into live action.
They turn the movies into cinematic universes, I believe.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It's like in two minds. You kind of go, well, creatively, maybe it's better to pursue new projects and new stuff. But on the other hand, it's almost like it is just that natural progression of telling stories over and over again in a new format that appeals to a newer audience. And you can't knock that. It's just a natural progression of something that's happened, for thousands of years. But I feel like people, like we've grown up, a lot of people just look at the time frame they've been alive. I've already had The Lion King in my lifetime. Why do I need another one? Maybe like 20 years between the two versions is a little short, I don't know. There's so many ways you can look at it. pros,
you want to
cons.
you want a Lion King at the end of your life so it can be
Yeah,
both the
yeah,
first and the
exactly.
last
Yeah.
movie you ever see. That's what
Well,
you
yeah,
want.
exactly
You
right.
want an
Yeah.
80-year gap between the
Mm-hmm.
Lion
Yeah.
Kings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you familiar at all with the Kingdom Hearts video game franchise?
I'm familiar. Have not played them myself, but I'm familiar with them.
Do you know conceptually what they are
Yeah.
about? Yeah. So
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts is a game that blends it's a game where the main character goes to a lot of different Disney worlds
Mhm.
and interacts with a lot of Disney characters, and I think you'd really like it.
Yeah.
And in the first game, I remember like a lot of the worlds you go to were those classic Disney films. So there was a
Yeah.
Tarzan, Hercules, Alice in Wonderland, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Neverland, and Atlantica, the Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was just curious if you were familiar with the franchise at all, because I just thought it would be right up your alley to play a game where you're a boy who goes and talks to all the Disney characters. I
I
was
think
like,
I think
surely Dave has played this.
no, I think I'd love it, but I'm not a huge gamer. I do
Mm,
play games occasionally. I think I don't know. I think it's only more recently where I've picked up playing games again. I
yeah,
played them heaps as a kid, obviously, Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1, all that stuff. But that kind of period, maybe like teen years and stuff, I fell off games. I don't know why. Maybe I was just always making videos and
too
stuff.
many
And my
cartoons.
too many cartoons, too many movies, and it's like finding that balance. But now I find more time to go and like play a video game or something. But that's just something that just kind of skipped me. I just
Mm,
missed it. But I would love to play it, and what I've seen of it, it looks really awesome
yeah, it is
for
really
sure.
cool. And you get like summons, like characters you can summon in battle, and there's characters like Stitch is one of them.
Yeah.
Chicken Little, ironically, is one of them. They're yet to do a world based on the Emperor's New Groove, but I think it would be
Oh,
hilarious.
shameful. Yeah.
I'd also love to know what you obviously have a passion for Western and generally American popular
Mhm.
culture. Have you ventured into any Eastern popular culture, particularly like often Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki films are referred to as like the Pixar of Japan.
Mm.
Have you ventured into that world at all?
I've seen very minimal like Ghibli stuff.
Oh, what a
Probably
shame.
like Howl's Moving Castle,
Yeah.
and I've seen Grave of the Fireflies, and
Please
there's
tell me
what's
you've
that
seen
other one?
Spirited Away.
Spirited Away is the other one. Yeah, so I've seen those three very long time ago though. I think for me, it's just been the accessibility of the films because I'm
Mm,
so physical media. And anime is so expensive. Like you pay 40 or
yes.
$50 for a movie. And it's just not something that I've ever, gone and spent the money on.
Mm.
Um, but all those Ghibli films are on Netflix now, and I'm making it I'm making it my what do you call it? My mission to actually watch them all. And I'd love to make some videos and stuff on
Yeah.
them for sure.
I would
Because what
love
I
to see that. I would love to
because
see some Ghibli
yeah,
videos from you.
well, the three that I've seen, I loved like amazing films, like
Mm.
incredible films. The animation's just gorgeous. And I grew up watching like Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon and stuff. But as far as like anime, that's kind of as far as I've really gone. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna go through that Ghibli catalog and get through those films because they just look incredible.
All right, before we finish up, and this has been the first ever mic talks, and it's been awesome
Yeah,
so far. So thank you so much.
no problem.
I want to talk about one more thing that I don't know if we can cut this out if you don't want to, but
Sure.
before all right, I'm going to expose you. No, before you were Dave Lee Down Under on YouTube,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
it's really funny because I didn't realize you were also a guy. You were also the Lee aspect of a Channel 31 talk show called
Yeah, sort of.
the Silicon Lee Show, which came
Yeah.
out of RMIT, which is where I
Deacon.
did Deacon. All
Deacon
right,
Uni.
he's done no research.
Rivals.
Well,
Rivals.
I went to RMIT and did a
Close.
bit with Channel 31 there, and
Yeah.
when I was at university studying, because you had some interview, I think, with Ryan Shelton, who is a personal hero of mine.
Mm.
And you did, is that right? I'm pretty sure.
I'm
I'm
trying to
pretty,
think.
I'm pretty sure I stumbled
Oh,
across a red carpet, maybe at the Logie
oh, on the red carpet, yes.
with
Yeah. I'm
Ryan
trying to
Shelton.
think. I'm thinking I've definitely met him. I'm trying to think where. Yeah,
Yeah.
Logies. Yeah.
And I just remember, oh, this Silicon Lee guys, they're, why should I even try to start in radio? They already have a show name. I'm just, at this point, I was just Michael. And I was just curious, like, that obviously Silicon Lee is no longer a
Yeah.
thing, I assume. Do you still see
No.
Silic? Oh, okay.
No, I haven't seen him for years. But
Yeah, okay.
I don't know the last time I saw him, but we talk occasionally.
Yeah, yeah. So you
We've,
don't hate him. It's not like a Cheech and
no,
Chong, a Cheech and
no,
Chong kind of thing. Yeah.
no.
um, what? Tell me a bit about that, because it's like you were almost doing a comedy partnership. Like
Mm,
when did it stray away from, hey, I want to do interviews on this like Rove Live style talk show on Channel 31 to
yeah,
now I'm going to start doing YouTube and start doing videos about my passions, which is animation and whatever, cinema and such. Because, I'm really familiar with being in that position where you're not really sure specifically what you want, but
yeah,
vaguely the area that you want to be
yeah.
in.
Well, we did, myself and Josh, who both co-hosted the show, so he was the silly half. We were
See,
friends from like high school.
I just thought his name was Silic and your name was Lee, because Lee is a first name, and I just thought Josh
Yeah,
had a really weird
Silic.
first name, like maybe it was like German or something.
No, Josh Dillick. So we were like friends. Get back to primary school, and we used to make a lot of home videos together and stuff. I got to uni, and I got involved with a student body called Deacon TV. Through a really weird set of circumstances, one of my best mates from uni found himself as the president of Deacon TV, and then elected me as like the vice president of Deacon TV. And we're in this position to be like, shit, let's fucking make a TV show. We're going to make this show for Channel 31. So like Deacon had like a partnership with 31 where 31 would almost, approve almost anything that came out of the Deacon studio.
And for anyone international, Channel 31 in Melbourne is basically like community access TV.
Yeah.
Like, students and anyone who wants to do some random show can do it on Channel 31. like the Silicon Lee show.
Well, yeah, exactly right. So through that, because Deacon has the big TV studio, we were able to use the TV studio. They made us pay to use it though. Even though we were part of Deacon TV, we were Deacon students, they made us pay to use the studio. So it was costing us, I don't know, it was like $1,000, $1,500 maybe for the year.
Wow.
Maybe $2,000 to use the studio for 6 episodes or however many episodes we did. We loved doing it. We did like a lot of like sketches and stuff out at Federation Square. We did like a lot of hidden camera stuff. And we loved it. We were going to cap it at season 1 though, because it was very exhausting. And Channel 31 came to us. They're like, we want you to do another season. So we're like, all right, so we'll do another one. Myself and Josh, we weren't getting along very well during the second season.
And also, wait, they asked you to do a second season, but you still had to pay the money to use the studio?
While we were paying to use the studio, we had to...
That's ridiculous.
I don't think we had to pay 31 to air the show. Usually Channel 31 would make you pay to air the show.
Yeah, okay.
But because of the partnership with Deacon, we didn't have to pay for that, but we had to pay Deacon to use Deacon's TV studio. So then we had to go back. We got funding for the second season. We completely run Deacon TV's funds dry that year, pretty much almost down to, I think we left like a couple of $100 maybe in there, maybe $100, and we went and got funding. I just got to a point where me and Josh weren't getting along very well on the show. We wanted to go in different directions. We were running out of money. It was costing a lot of money. We're having to throw like obviously our own money into the show. It was a very expensive show to produce. Like the set and stuff, we had to pay to build the set and just everything like that. We obviously couldn't pay the crew and stuff. That was all just as part of the Deacon TV thing. People were helping out. And it just got to a point where we weren't enjoying it. We weren't really getting anything out of it either. We were hoping maybe, get eyes from somewhere, but we weren't very good at it, to be honest. I look back at it and I wasn't a very good presenter on it. And it's just one of those things that kind of falls aside. Nothing came of it. The interviews and stuff we did, red carpets and stuff, I managed to organize that all myself by like getting in touch with PR agencies and stuff. And a lot of those people I'm still in touch with now on my YouTube channel. So that really kind of segued into that in that respect. But it just got to a point where it just wasn't, nothing was coming of it. We weren't very good. And we stopped doing it. And there's maybe 5 years after uni, I was really doing nothing. I was working as a photographic assistant. Really hated it towards the end. And I found YouTube as like the YouTube channel. I started my first YouTube channel because I had gotten onto film preview screening lists through Silicon Lee Show. And
so it ended up all coming into a circle.
Oh yeah, it is this weird kind of circular life thing. It got to a point where I was on like all the lists for all the major studios, and I started dropping off because I didn't have a platform anymore to be able to do reviews and stuff. If you don't have a platform, they'll drop you off the list. They do like these kind of audits, maybe every 6 months. I started dropping off, and it got to a point where I had maybe 1 or 2, and I was like, I don't want to lose these contacts. I'm going to start like a YouTube channel. Didn't take it very seriously. I did like maybe 6 reviews in 2 years or something, but I was just keeping that contact. And then it got to a point where I was like, why can't I make this something a bit bigger? Started a second channel, which is the channel I'm currently doing now. And my aim was, originally I was Disney Dave Down Under. And I thought I'm just going to use my love for Disney to do Disney videos, right? And that was essentially so I could keep my Disney contact, really.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I just started taking it a lot more seriously. I discovered YouTubers like Casey Neistat, who were millionaires off of YouTube, and just people that just turned a passion into a profession. And I thought, well, why can't I do that? And like one of the things I learned from his videos was turn up to work every single day. And for like a straight year, I did daily videos. I had put out a video out there every single day. Not many of them were very good, but it helped me build kind of this community, this real growth. And it got to a point where I was like, well, I don't want to be bloody Disney Dave my whole life. I'd love to talk about just general movies. I'd love to share my love for other cartoon studios, my love for just, whatever. That's when I rebranded to Dave Lee Down Under. And it was really with the Looney Tunes stuff where everything took off. But I think it's just like this weird natural progression where you try one thing, it doesn't work. You try something else, like takes off. My number one passion has always just been telling stories in any way I can, whether it's making movies or whether it's making, content for online, whether it was hosting a pretty average variety series for local TV.
You had Ryan Shelton on.
Yeah, exactly right. We had some good we spoke to a lot of really good people. We did the Logies things and stuff. Hamish and Andy we spoke to, and Rove.
I know those guys.
And yeah, you know those guys quite well. And so it was just like, and we were kind of almost like doing a very Hamish and Andy thing on our show. The Silicon Lee show, actually, we wanted to do it like Hamish and Andy didn't have their TV show at the time. They didn't have Gap Year. But they'd done like all those little segments on Rove.
Stuff.
And they did like Caravan of Courage, all that kind of stuff. And me and Josh were like, oh, we love these things they do and like little hidden camera things. We'd love to do like a series based on that. It was almost going to be like TV for radio. And the year we started doing Silicon Lee show, Hamish and Andy did Gap Year and put out Gap Year like, I was like 6 months before Silicon Lee show debuted on 31.
You were so close. You were so close.
So close to stardom.
It could have been you.
It did. Yeah. No, but it was almost like it then looked like in one way we were, getting inspiration from, but it looked like we were just totally blatantly ripping them off. So in one respect, it was almost like we wanted to kind of use Channel 31 as a platform to maybe get recognized, but it was just a wrong way to do it because we were doing something that was already being done. So, we didn't really get any kind of anything out of the back end of that. But yeah, again, just sort of like this natural progression of you try one thing, it doesn't work. You try another thing, it doesn't work. And you finally, you hit something that does work.
I love that, man. I love that. Final thing, and I'll let you go. This is,
no, you're right.
I just want to know your thoughts on this because this is one of my favorite quotes of all time, and I'm going to butcher the actual quote. but it's a quote. It's a quote from from C.S. Lewis, who is the author of the Chronicles of Narnia. And it's always been a quote I've really liked, which is that it's something along the lines of this. It's like, when I was a young boy, I I used to read fiction in secret because I didn't want anyone to know that I still liked children's things. But now that I am an adult man, I read fiction openly, because when I became a man, I put away childish things, including the need to feel very grown up.
Yeah.
And I just feel like when I think about, you know, your hobbies, not to put words in your mouth, but your passions and my passions, and the kind of content that we make and like to talk about on our respective outlets, I just always felt like that quote really resonated. And I just thought I'd end the show by just, putting that out, I suppose.
Well, there's a similar quote from Walt Disney that's inspired
And
me
we're out of
forever,
time, guys. Sorry.
and,
No, I'm just joking.
sorry.
No,
Let me
I'm just
get it in.
joking.
I get it. Why do we have to grow up? It's what Walt Disney said. Why do we have to grow up? Why do we have to?
He made a whole movie about it. It's called Peter Pan.
Exactly right. Yeah. But yeah, it's just that idea of like, why do we have to, why can we not love these kinds of things just because we're grown up? It's about embracing the inner child, and just, this was him, especially Walt Disney, lived by just making content that made people smile and happy, and it made the child in everyone happy and blossom or whatever. But yeah, I think that's a great quote there too, and definitely encapsulates everything that my channel's about, my content's about, and your stuff's about too, for sure.
Thank you so much for doing this, man. This has been
Absolute
awesome.
pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
I'd love to do it again. Please go and subscribe on YouTube. Dave Lee Down Under is the channel. It is really good. There's a whole back catalog of just really entertaining videos, long videos, so you can just binge them while I watch them while I'm playing games. I'll just have your videos on and stuff. They're really good, guys. Lots on all the stuff we've talked about today, and as well as your podcast. It's just is it just the Dave Lee podcast?
It's just Dave Lee Down Under podcast.
Dave Lee Down Under.
Didn't want to get too confusing. I just keep it the same name. And so Dave Lee Down Under YouTube, Dave Lee Down Under podcast. So,
and Dave Lee Down Under on Insta. You're not too active on Insta, but I follow you there. So
yeah, not as much on Instagram. I use Twitter a lot. But I am on Instagram. I was usually just posting about what content I've got coming out and whatever. But I do need to start posting more stuff over there. But yeah, I'm up across almost everything there. So,
and anything else, feel free. You've now got, this is the free plug time. You've got 20 seconds to plug anything. How about this? Plug anything, and then tell everyone one movie you think they should watch at the end of this. Yeah, that's how we'll end it.
Okay. You've just plugged everything of mine. The only thing I would really plug would be the podcast, because it's new and it's fresh. I'm trying to build an audience around it. Dave Lee Down Under podcast, just talk movies and stuff, really. It's more of an outlet for me to talk about things that I wouldn't normally talk about on the channel, but would like to. So maybe like stuff that doesn't perform very well in video form, just general movie news, general movie chat, just random stuff like that. That people don't kind of flock towards videos that I make. So it's more of a conduit for me to just speak crap about movies. So yeah, that's the plug right there, speaking crap about stuff. And one movie that everyone should watch, well, we said Fantasia before. I think that's an important one, and I feel like it's one not a lot of people have watched. Like, it's one of those movies that has become so obscure. But other than that, the one movie, if anyone asks me recommend one film, I always go to Casablanca, because I think it's the most perfect film that was ever made, and you can learn anything you ever wanted to know about filmmaking from Casablanca. Perfect script, perfectly put together. The actors are incredible. The story is incredible. Just everything. I think it's a perfect film, and that's the one movie I recommend to absolutely everybody. Amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me on. Been a blast.
That was great, dude. That was, I
Awesome.
hope that was